All right, let's just dive right in. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack what is honestly the ultimate maritime mystery in human history. I want you to picture this. It's 1872, out in the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. A ship is spotted, drifting completely silently. It's moving, but there is absolutely no one at the helm. This is the Mary Celeste, a name that's basically become synonymous with the unexplained. We're going to break down exactly what happened step by step, using the hard historical facts we actually have.
Just think about the sheer, chilling reality of this paradox for a second. The food was right there, totally untouched. The cargo? Perfectly safe. But everyone was just gone. You're essentially stepping onto a floating crime scene, or really, a ghost scene, that completely defies all maritime logic. It's a perfectly functional vessel that somehow just swallowed its crew whole.
So, let's open the first chapter of our investigation, the impossible ghost ship. The sheer impossibility of the situation is staggering. In December of 1872, sailors discover this merchant ship. Now, from a distance, it maybe looked a little banged up, but it was absolutely capable of sailing, with its sails even partly raised. So they climb aboard, and the cargo is completely untouched. There's food and fresh water meant to last for months still sitting there. But there is zero trace of a human being. No captain, no crew, no passengers, and most hauntingly, not a single body. Just a perfectly seaworthy ship, completely abandoned. To understand what went wrong, we have to rewind to the doomed final journey. 10. I really want you to keep this number in your head as we go through this. It's so easy to get lost in the maritime details in the vastness of the ocean, but the absolutely crucial point is this. 10 living, breathing human beings vanished into thin air. 10 lives, completely unaccounted for. So who were they? Let's put some faces to this mystery. On November 7th, 1872, they sailed out of New York City. At the helm was Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs. Now, he wasn't some rookie. He was a highly experienced sailor with a stellar reputation. And that's important because it tells us that whatever happened out there, it probably wasn't due to some amateur mistake. He also brought his family along, his wife Sarah and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia. Alongside them were 7 crew members. 10 people in total, sailing out into the rough weather of the Atlantic, expecting a totally ordinary journey to Europe. And they were protecting a very specific and highly volatile shipment. The Mary Celeste was carrying more than 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, bound for Genoa, Italy. Keep this detail tucked in the back of your mind because this specific cargo is going to become a massive focal point when we start piecing together the clues a bit later.
Let's map this out to see the shrinking window of time where things went south. They depart on November 7th, and everything seems completely fine. But look at that middle date, November 25th. That is the date of the ship's final logbook entry. However, the ship wasn't actually discovered until December 4th. That leaves roughly 10 missing days. 10 days where the ship traveled a massive distance in complete silence, with absolutely no explanation for what transpired on its decks.
Which leads us right into part 3, searching for clues. Let's set the scene of the actual discovery. It's almost a full month after the Mary Celeste left New York. Sailors aboard a vessel called the Dei Grazia are looking out over the choppy Atlantic waters, and they spot a ship moving strangely. It's not following a clear direction. Captain David Morehouse of the Dei Grazia orders his men closer, knowing full well the ship should have been much farther along its route by now. But the most terrifying part? They are hailing the ship, yelling out to it, and there is zero response. No signals, no voices, no movement on the deck at all. Boarding the ship revealed an absolute forensic puzzle. Just look at the stark contrast here. Left behind, you have the cargo, totally untouched. The food and water, plentiful. Even the crew's personal belongings were still in their sleeping areas. They didn't even pack their bags. But then look at what is missing. The 10 people, obviously, but also, crucially, the ship's lifeboat is gone. The navigation equipment is missing, and one of the ship's pumps has actually been taken apart. It looked exactly like everyone had just grabbed the navigation gear, piled into the lifeboat, and left together. Now, the boarding party did find some damage. There was water inside the lower part of the ship, but, and this is the absolute key detail, it was absolutely not enough to prove the ship was sinking. The Mary Celeste was still perfectly seaworthy. So, I have to pose this question to you. Why in the world would a highly experienced captain take his wife, his toddler, and his entire crew and abandon a large, floatable ship for a tiny, dangerous lifeboat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? It makes absolutely no sense, right? Which brings us to our next step. We need to cross-examine the evidence. Time to dive into Section 4, Testing the Theories. First up, pirates. I mean, it's the 1800s, so it's a completely logical jump. But we can debunk this one almost immediately. Think about it. Pirates attack ships to steal valuable goods. But the Mary Celeste still had more than 1,700 barrels of highly valuable industrial alcohol sitting right there on the hold. If pirates took the crew, there was no way they would have left that kind of payday behind.
Okay, so what about an inside job? A crew mutiny? Again, the physical evidence just doesn't back it up. Investigators meticulously scoured the ship and found absolutely no clear signs of a fight, no obvious evidence of a violent attack, no bloodstains, no signs of a battle on the deck whatsoever. You don't have a mutiny without a struggle, especially not one that successfully overpowers an experienced captain without leaving a single trace.
So, if it wasn't human intervention, what about nature? Some folks believe a powerful storm or a freak giant wave simply washed everyone overboard. And while the weather out there was known to be pretty rough, this just doesn't explain the missing lifeboat or the missing navigation equipment. A wave doesn't neatly unpack a pump and carefully launch a lifeboat. This brings us to what a lot of experts consider the most logical theory, and it ties right back to that volatile cargo we mentioned earlier. Here's how it goes. Step 1. The ship is carrying industrial alcohol, and some of those barrels begin to leak vapor. Step 2. That vapor creates a terrifying sound or maybe a sudden burst of pressure in the hold. The crew, smelling the intense fumes, genuinely believes the ship is about to blow into a million pieces. Step 3. In a massive panic, Captain Briggs orders a temporary evacuation. They pile into the lifeboat, grabbing the navigation gear, and trail behind the Mary Celeste on a long rope, just waiting for the vapor to clear. And Step 4. Rough weather hits, the rope snaps, and the tiny lifeboat drifts away into the vast Atlantic, leaving the empty Mary Celeste to just sail on without them. It is a completely harrowing thought watching your safe haven sail away from you, but remember, that is still just a theory. Nobody can actually prove it.
And that leads us to our final chapter, an unsolved maritime mystery.
The reality of what actually followed is frustratingly blank. The Mary Celeste was taken to Gibraltar, where officials conducted a massive, formal investigation. I mean, they tore the ship apart looking for evidence of murder, of insurance fraud, of some elaborate secret crime. But no clear answers were ever found. Not a single confirmed body of those 10 people was ever recovered from the ocean. No final message in a bottle, nothing. The ship itself actually continued to be used as a merchant vessel for several years after, completely haunted by its own history. And this brings us to the core of why we are still talking about this today. The Mary Celeste is remembered as history's most famous ghost ship. But as this quote from our source notes so beautifully, it's not because the ship disappeared, but because the people disappeared while the ship remained. It is literally the presence of the ship that makes the absence of the people so deeply, deeply unsettling. So we've laid out all the evidence. You've seen the untouched cargo, the missing lifeboat, the completely vanished crew. Now I turn it over to you. What is your theory? Did they panic over the alcohol fumes? Did a massive storm force their hand? Or did something else happen out there in the dark waters of the Atlantic that history will simply never reveal? Take the clues we've explained today, think it over, and let us know your conclusion. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the unexplained.